Recently, I offered my patrons a glimpse behind the curtain of how I make some of the effect shots in my Ludum Dare documentaries. And they chose this shot of the game that never was. This is the faking of the Super Ludum Dare arcade cabinet screen. I divided up this video into 3 parts, starting with the graphics for the title screen, then doing effects and animation, and lastly making the sound. Now let's get started and head over straight to Photoshop, where it all began. So yes, it is very small. Let's zoom up here at 300%. And yeah, the resolution is 280 by 224. That's close to the resolution of arcade games of the 80s. It was, I think, usually 284 by 224, but 280 by 224 is the resolution of Contra, which is a very fun game and very remarkable arcade game. So yeah, I took this as a reference. Let's switch off here all the layers and yeah, switch them on one by one. It's very straightforward. So we have here, of course, the credits with a 0 or a 1, which gets switched over as soon as I insert the coin. Then we have here the Pixel Prophecy copyright logo. It was really fun making this little logo. I have a thing for pixels, you might have noticed. Yes, then the whole text stuff here, such as 1UP or the current high score. 1UP here is the high score for player 1, and this one is the overall high score on this machine. It's a little Easter egg, which I love to put into stuff. Yes, and this one here, this is the Super Ludum Dare pixel graphic. And on top of this all, let's switch on the pixel graphic here. On top of this all, I have here a little layer that just multiplies a little gradient, which I just drew myself all over the fonts, because the font I used was my own pixel font, but arcade games often had colorful sprite fonts, so usually with gradients and such. So yeah, I multiplied this one over here in Photoshop. Yes, the logo itself, yeah, was also a simple matter of pixeling. And for the perspective effect, once I had pixeled here now the type, let's make a new layer here, and pretty much defined my vanishing point to be here in the middle. So let's take this as a vanishing point. Let's switch this over here to pixels. So yeah, I just drew here the vanishing point for the perspective. And once I had this, I just, yeah, filled them out. So here with a slightly darker orange or red, and here with a darker orange. And that is precisely how this one here was done. So this one here was the screen for insert coin, and I made another screen which I didn't save the Photoshop project of, which just reads get ready. So yeah, as I said, it's just a simple matter of get ready like this, and yeah, I only have this layer. So yeah, this was the Photoshop thing. It's really straightforward. So let's take a look at the animation of this whole thing in After Effects. If you don't know After Effects, basically it's just Photoshop, just with a timeline here where you can animate everything, adjustments, masks, filters, and layers, and compose them together. So why this step is called compositing. So yes, this is here our canvas where we can move things around. And this one here is just like in Photoshop, basically our layers over a certain period of time. So if we look at the timeline, what happens now, if I scrub through it, just the insert coin thing blinks, then here is this big gradient once the coin drops, and it blinks to player game and switches to a get ready. So yeah, this is also pretty straightforward from an animation perspective here. As you can see here, what happens here is just that I have a black solid that's here on top of the insert coin here. So I'm just having here black solid, here's none, here's the black solid again at regular intervals, so it looks like it's blinking. This also is this little stairs thing here. It's just the blinking here of this 2-player game, where again I just overlay here a black shape on top of this one, just to hide it behind. If I turn off here now the background, you can see, yeah, it's just a couple of black bars that are on top of everything. And this get ready screen is just a PNG still straight from Photoshop. Again, this one has the resolution of the original Photoshop file, or the original quote-unquote arcade game. So, and it has also here a frame rate of 30 frames per second. I could have used 60 frames per second, but I just went for 30 because it renders just faster. Okay, this was here the animation of the title screen. So let's see how I made it look like it was inside an arcade cabinet. With the animation done in the first step, I nested the whole composition here in a new sequence called Source VGA Screen. The whole previous composition appears as a single layer in here now. All I did was nudge it down a little from the top so it wouldn't look cut off or something in the final composition. So this Source VGA screen is now a layer in the next composition, which I called VFX Out. When I now scrub through it, a lot of strange things are going on, but basically the whole CRT simulation happens in this composition here. So let's go through the layers again. Let's go and talk about the scaler, which is just used to scale things up or down. So I have a background here. Oh, by the way, this composition already is in the final resolution of the final product, which is HD 920 by 1080 with 60 frames per second. All right, so I have the background, which is completely black. And on top of this one, I import here the VGA source. And this one already is scaled up to the final size as it should appear in the screen. And then on top of this, I have here, the first layer here is RF noise. So what the hell is this? Well, since I'm assuming we're inside here of some CRT television, I have here this little animated noise. We're in here at 800%. Let's switch this back to 200. If I just make a little preview, yeah, it's just those little noise you have always in your analog equipment, and it's just incredibly hard to get rid of entirely. And so I thought it adds a little bit of realism if you have just this hint of noise that's going on top of this one here. So if I zoom in now here at 400%, sorry, you just have this little fuzziness of noise, which again was pretty common even if you had a perfect connection to your screen. The next one here, this is interesting. This is just called scan. And let's make a little preview here. It's probably not too easy to see, but if I loop this now, here it happens here. It's just a black bar that runs from top to bottom. So yeah, this is because CRTs draw the image from top to bottom 50 or 60 times a second, and the phosphorus film that lights up inside the CRT, so when it gets hit by a ray, it glows a little bit longer and producing an after image. And so if a video camera is not perfectly synced up with a CRT, those CRT screens will flicker horribly. And so yeah, I went for an impression of a camera being just slightly out of sync with the image, but not so much that it's distracting. So this is why I have this little black bar here. By the way, what is cool for After Effects is you can use little scripts. They're called expressions in here. It's in Java syntax. Yeah, it's just making this thing here loop and go up and down. We have this one, the next one here, effects control, which just controls here the scan speed and the scan intensity, because here in those expressions you can reference controls such as, just as the slider here, so this one makes it go faster, or amps up the intensity so that it's stronger and faster. Yeah, it's very self-explanatory. So I've coded this once here, so I can use it each time I want to make something appear as if it was shot on a video camera from a monitor. All right, the Afterglow. For the next adjustment layer, let's look here at the blinking insert coin line. In the animation, it goes from on to off and back completely. And this Afterglow effect here just does what it's called. It blends a couple of animation frames together in order to simulate a sluggish CRT screen. If you've ever compared an old-timey TV set with a low-latency flat screen, you probably noticed the picture to have some sort of motion blur. And yeah, that's what this layer tries to recreate. The next layer here is blur. Now, why the hell blur the image again? Well, nothing in real life is ever pixel perfect. Even with the best camera and the best lens, even the sharpest of edge will appear a bit blurry. So for this realism, I blur the image over time and in itself. Next up is my favorite effect, and it does this. Bam. Let's have a look at this image individually. It's some kind of grid, right? But when I zoom in, you see it's made up of little dots, one for each color channel. This is how the pixel mask in a CRT television set looks like up close. And by simply multiplying it on top of an image, it makes it look as if it got displayed on a TV screen. And this is why it also needs a little bit of blurring. And the icing on the cake is another layer on top that simulates the scan lines of a low-res image being scaled up for output on a TV screen. It's just alternating lines of white and gray multiplied on top. And this is what produces this final image here. So of course, if I play now back with all these effects, it looks a little bit better, but still not like it was really inside an arcade game machine. So, and it is a little bit too dark. So let's take all this complete composition here of VFX out and put it into the next one, which is VFX out more effects. And here you can see things are coming together pretty nicely. This is almost the final composition. So again, let's dig up from the bottom. So I have here just the red channel, just the green channel, and just the blue channel, and just add them up. Why do I do this? Why not have the source just as it is and split up the channels? Well, maybe you've watched my video on chromatic aberration, and this is how I fake chromatic aberration. You can't really see it here. Maybe just for demonstration's sake, let's drop in here a white solid here. Yeah, that we can see it here now on VFX out, and it was VFX out more effects. So you can see here that there's just some very little chromatic aberration going on, which is also a sign of CRT televisions, because the rays are not perfectly matched up and they tend to drift a little, and this one simulates this effect here. So towards the edges, it getting slightly out of sync in a way, so that separate color channels don't overlap. So let's get rid of this white one here. So we have our final image here. Good. The next one here, scan, I did before, so I don't need this one here. Effect controls, okay. This one here, brightness, as you can probably guess, it just has a little levels effect here, and it makes everything a little bit brighter. Now for this glow here, it's also a telltale sign of old-timey screens. If there's a bright area in one spot, it tends to spill over a little and brightens up everything surrounding it. I'm just blurring here the whole picture underneath the effect by 76 pixels and add it to itself with a very low opacity. And what we have here now is this distort thing here. And another thing, if you've grown up with CRT TVs, they were never flat. I think Sony invented this Sony Trinitron, where they had the screen was completely flat. I mean, nowadays we used to LCDs, but back then every TV was a little bit bulbous. So this is what this one simulates here. And finally, the glare. In my opinion, this really sells it, which is the reflection of the person playing the game. And who is this? Well, of course, it is me. Let's look into this composition here of glare. Yes, I shot this one here on my phone and I was very tired. So let's play it back. And I was just holding my phone against a chair and pretending I was inserting a coin. And just the most important thing is just to get the perspective right. And I did this here at work because I found this background here a little bit more interesting, and a little bit of arcade-like looking. And I just took this one here and put it on top, flipped it, of course, so that it's a mirror image. And the transparency is set down to 15%. Otherwise, it would be just too much. I also blurred it a little, as I can see here, and just made it a little bit darker. So the quality doesn't really matter of this little phone video here, because it gets blurred anyway. So this is I think I think I have just one thing here, which was called arcade game. So this is the very final thing. What do I differently here? I don't know. It's just another little blur on top of it all. So yeah, if we look at this one here now at 400%, it really looks pixely on one side, but still like it was, yeah, just on a TV screen. So at this point I was very happy with the visuals, but I wanted the sound to be, yeah, was plausible and authentic as well. So I settled for something to sound like it would come straight from the Yamaha YM2151 chip. This one, as it says here, was used in many arcade game board systems in the 1980s, and also has this Mega Drive or a Sega Genesis sound, and also was the sound chip used for MIDI on the first Adlib sound cards and Sound Blaster sound cards. So, how to make something sound like it came straight from the YM2151? Well, I've here a Reason. Reason is my audio program of choice for making music. And a couple of years back, I bought a new instrument extension for this one. And this one was here, the FM4. It's a frequency modulator synthesizer. And it sounds just like you would expect it. Let's play just a few notes. Or the guitar. So yeah, it sounds exactly like the Sega Genesis, because yeah, it's frequency modulation. And yeah, 2 years ago I made this little song called Genesis March. Yeah, and this song was the one I used for the title screen of Super Ludum Dare. Okay, but it still sounded not like it would sound as if played back on a big bulky arcade machine. So let's do something about that. So to get a reference for how a real arcade sounds if you just record an arcade game with a crappy camera, I scoured the internet and especially YouTube for guys, yeah, just restoring their arcade game machines. And I found this one here, my latest arcade treasure Final Fight. And this guy just plays it for a little bit and you can get a pretty nice feedback for the room tone where he's playing it.
And there you go. So far, it's looking good.
So I wanted this room tone, and how to get this? Well, first I need a sample of how it sounds without the room, as we say in audio, a dry sample. And of course I found a Let's Play of this one here. Which is, yeah, the same sequence as in this video. And with those two sound files, I headed straight to Reaper. So Reaper is a DAW or digital audio workstation, and yeah, it's just like a Reason, but you have a couple of more ways to tweak your sounds. And I use this for tasks where Audacity is not enough. Yeah, so I loaded up the sound of the crappy cheap camera in one track and the sound of my dry source in the other channel. Just ran a spectrometer over it and just added reverbs and equalizers until it matched up pretty closely. And this is the final result of my sound from before. Which sounds like it's being played back in some room with a crappy and recorded with a crappy camera. So if I deactivate now all those effects, let's hear them one by one. So this is a dry source. And now I just add equalizers. And finally, the reverb. Yeah, those are the settings for the equalizer, so I have some spikes here. I really took out a lot of the spectrum here and have this one spike here. And now it sounds like it was recorded from a crappy camera. The good thing is now I have these settings and I can make everything sound as if it was recorded from a crappy camera in a crappy room. Okay, the last thing I needed still was the coin drop sound, and believe it or not, this one was pretty straightforward. When I'm not able to record a sound, I usually go to SoundSnap and yeah, just have a look around, and incidentally I found this one here. Or was it that one? Yeah, it was either one of those two, which I just went ahead and bought. Got the WAV file here, and then finally in my editing program, Adobe Premiere, I could finally put everything together. So finally I have all my assets in the edit together. So this one here on top is the visual effect. This is the music, the coin drop, and the big chord that plays once the coin got dropped. Again, the final result in all its high definition glory. So thank you for watching, and a big shout out to all those brave people who support me over at Patreon and make little videos like this possible. Thank you very much. And now back to work on the LD39 documentary.